Good evening. All the way from Los Angeles, we have Lee England Jr. And coast to coast, I'm Thornell Jones, and I'm here in Miami. These are the Impact series started about 3 years ago when we first did this kind of virtual conversation with the legendary songwriter David Porter from Stax Records, all those great Stax records that were written by David and Isaac Hayes. And so it morphed into this conversation series with myself, my co-host, Jason Kramer, who ironically I met teaching a class at Musicians Institute in Hollywood. So today we're happy to start the fall round of interviews with Lee. And we're excited because in addition to him being a guest on our show, he's also a new part of the Ovation family. And we have so much in store. But before we get into that, just kind of want to talk to Lee about what's he been doing for the last few years. He was blazing a path towards the sky and made some changes in his life. So we'd love to drill down on that, and, you know, his vision for the future, and, you know, kind of understanding a little bit about his very, very exciting past. So welcome to the show, Lee.
What's up?
He says, sup, how you doing? So we know that you're from outside of Chicago, Waukegan. What brings you to LA today?
I'm doing a performance for a group that's having an event called Unreasonable Conversations. And they bring a bunch of policymakers and TV people and advertising people together to have conversations in the hopes that they would take some of these adverse views back with them to the drawing boards for advertising and for just coordinating the storyline and the narratives that are being pushed. You know, it's like a very hopeful event that people will take action.
That's really cool, and also very much in alignment with what I know that your kind of spirituality is, in putting out positive messages into the universe. That's very, very, very cool. What will you be doing today?
I will be playing alongside of Chris Bowers, who's a Emmy Award-winning pianist. And we'll be playing a couple of songs, and then just easy light work.
Well, it's just like with you and your violin, you make everything seem like light work. So I'm that's not to say it is, but you absolutely make it seem that way. I've had the privilege of spending a couple days alone with you, locked in a room, to kind of just understand who you are and what you're about. So this is an opportunity for me to kind of get you to talk about some of the things you may have talked about before. When did you really know that you had a gift on the violin? When did you just kind of say, oh yeah, I'm kind of good at this?
I think when people started giving me praise and accolades for it, that's when I realized how much of a gift it was. From my perspective, my life happens exactly how it's supposed to, but
Right.
From outside looking in, it's some formidable peaks and valleys and things to overcome. So it looks, from other perspectives, like I've just blazed for not letting anything stop me. And I have, but on my end, I feel like there was really no other option.
Right.
I never really saw it like, oh, this is something to stop me, or this is in my way. It was kind of like, no, this is for me, and it was set up so that I get to the next stage with the knowledge or strength that it took to to go through those things. So I see it as it's basic. So it definitely is a gift, which is why I don't feel like I ever get too high and mighty about it, because it was given to me. I was this way before I got here. So
Right. Right. You know, you have this hard drive that you carry around with you that has like, you know, all this precious footage. And I was like, oh yeah, how about this and how about that? It was just like everyone else has a thumb drive, and you've got this like 5 terabyte hard drive.
Oh no, I only brought that with me because I don't keep everything on me all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Right.
like where I store the most precious things. You know?
Yeah, well, there was some precious stuff on there. I was very, very, very impressed by the things that you have in your catalog. I remember back in the day, my relatives all had like Super 8 cameras and would like shoot, you know, us as kids or whatever. We didn't have that. So the earliest footage I have probably is, I mean, I've got photographs, but the earliest footage I have is probably in high school. But you showed us a video of you playing along with the orchestra. I believe you were in college. Tell us a little bit about that story and how you got to that point, because that was a very interesting video to watch. I don't think I shared with you my perspective on it. Talk a little bit about that.
So when I was in college, there was a concerto competition that always took place on campus, and I had just won a talent show off campus, but I knew that I had worked hard enough to win that too. And there was a blind jury. So they would bring in professors from other colleges and universities so that it would be unbiased judging.
Right.
And that's all I needed. Oh, you mean all they
Yes,
had to do is hear me? It was in the bag. It was in the bag. I knew I was gonna win, you know. I had been working for it, and I won contrary to, you know, everything else that was going on in the environment.
Did they think so? So they didn't think you were going to win. You won because it was an unbiased jury. And was this like something that you had been kind of adversity or attitude that you had been facing all the time you were in school? Or was this just around this one kind of competition?
Well, without getting into all of the details,
Sure.
The classical music world is not a very what's the word I'm looking for? It can be a little bit hostile to someone like me.
Okay. And the reason, well, okay, so just to set the stage, I was a gifted first violin player and then viola player. My orchestra teacher did not want me to excel, but they switched me to viola, and the head of the music department of the whole district was a viola player. And so he started giving me private lessons, which of course made the head of my orchestra livid because I got to be pretty good at it. And he would do everything he could to keep me from trying to shine. But then I ended up, you know, second chair in the all county orchestra, the Westchester County Orchestra, playing viola, and that made him even madder. And I could not understand what was going on. And the department chair, who was a very nice older guy, was just like, "Don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. Your gift is what's shining." And you know, what do we learn? We learn sometimes when you shine, you bring out the haters. You know,
Yeah,
so was it a situation like that for you, or was it like institutional, structural kinds of stuff?
It was a little bit of, I wouldn't say a little bit of both. It was some haters, you know, just to be all the way clear.
There you go.
But I had been set up correctly when I first went. You know, I don't even remember who it was, but I was told, "Don't worry if they don't hear you, just keep playing."
Right.
And I didn't know how real that was until my junior year, when I saw other students being promoted ahead of me for things that I had earned, I had
Right.
rightfully earned, and I knew that I had
Right.
earned. So
Right.
when I got passed up, that's when I was like, oh, okay, well then, this whole thing becomes something different. And
Yeah.
I don't know if other people in the world know that, like, telling a young Black child, a Black boy, that he can't do something
Right.
when I already had enough love to get through all of those conversations,
Right.
it was rocket fuel. So
Right.
like,
Right.
it's like, oh, you said I can't, well, I'm going to prove you otherwise, but not
Right.
because I want to prove you otherwise, just because,
Just
like
because.
you're insignificant in my story if I don't talk about you,
Right.
you know. But thank you so much. Again, back to these adversities, I see them as the only way it could have went, you
Right.
know, because I didn't become, I was already rebellious. I just started to show it, you know.
Right.
And what happened as a result of the just the nature and environment I was in, I developed my own style
Right.
of not only play, but dress, you know.
Right.
So if early in my career, I would always wear tuxedo tails, with my J's and my baseball cap, my jeans, like that developed as a result of someone telling me that I couldn't do something.
Right.
Like, well, I'm
Well,
gonna do the opposite of what you say all day in every single way that I can come up with, rightfully so. And I'm thankful for them for it.
well, I got to tell you, I will never tell you what you can't do because you've proven again and again that you can. When we first started talking, I did what I call the digital sweep, and I just go across the internet looking for Lee England Jr. And I was just like, wow, there's so many, different ways you can come at your story. Obviously, at the top of the program, Allison talked about your, endorsee of the Jordan brand, and you've put out music and you've appeared on television, but there's one thing that really kind of stuck out for me, and of course it's completely left turn for me to ask you this, but how did you end up doing the theme for the WWE? That thing has like 15 million views on YouTube. I'm like, what? How does that happen?
The Jordan brand,
Okay.
I have to give them their credit, because whether it was directly or indirectly, whether I was name dropping or they was coming to get me,
Right.
I was able to leverage that into so many things. And so the WWE thing being one of them, the Jordan brand has a reputation of taking care of people. And
Sure.
so people are always looking for opportunities to reciprocate that love. And
Sure.
so there was a conversation that was had about a new wrestler that was getting ready to move up in the ranks and who had this theme song, who had violins on it already. And they were like, the Jordan brand reps were like, well, we have a violinist. They're like, really? You think he could, play this theme song? They're like, of course he can. So they flew me out to New York. I was able to get into the studio with the CFOs, who are the people that produced the original track, and I was able to like write my own parts,
Right.
as far as what I would play.
Right.
At the entrance, when the wrestler moved from one, like, I don't know, like one network to another or one bracket to another,
Right.
he was moving up, and so it was a big deal, and nobody kind of knew that he was showing up. They didn't know he was coming, and so when the spotlight hit me, as people recall and tell me the story, they're like, "Yo, what is about to happen? We have no idea." And I started into like this, just a freestyle that would morph into the actual song.
Right.
And by the time the actual song hit, it was like they were so drawn in that it was just like you could hear a pin drop while I was playing, like in an arena with like 16,000 people. It's
Right.
like it's theater,
Yes.
Definitely, it's very acrobatic and athletic theater. and
Yes.
they were drawn into, you know, these storylines. So my performance, as you know, wrestling fans tell me now, is like in the top 10. Like they loved
That's
they,
wild.
they loved it. So after that first time, I remember being in Brooklyn, and I was just walking around, like, cause my, you know, the hotel was right there, right next to the Barclays. Uh, it was like I might as well have been one of the wrestlers, because everyone
Right.
was going. It was stopping me, taking pictures, or singing the song,
Singing
you
the
know,
song.
or yeah, it was crazy. You know, I was like, but it was very much
That
uh
is so crazy. Yeah,
it
you've
was
got
great.
definitely, ladies and gentlemen, anyone who's watching, go to the YouTube and type in Lee England Jr. WWE, and the video will pop up. It's very dramatic, and it's like
So dramatic.
it absolutely is hashtag legendary. You did that.
Yeah, I get tweets every now and then. It's like, yo, tonight could be the night they bring back Lee England Jr. Like, we would love that. Like, why don't they just do it? So I'm sure that somewhere down the line I end up doing it again, because it's kind of like the fans, they keep asking for it.
Well, you know, it's the fans that drive all of this. I mean, to the extent, I mean, on the business side, obviously from the creative side, it's whatever's inside of you. But like that kind of takes me to, so you're this violin virtuoso. You've won every competition you ever, you know, set your mind towards. You blow the people away in Japan. And somewhere along the way, you decide that you want to sing. I mean, obviously you came up in the church, and you know, people influence, you know, you in terms of your singing, but it's just like, if people know you for violin, as a violin player, and you excel at it, and there's no doubt that you're a premier player, what is it that fuels you to say, okay, I'm going to pivot, and now I'm going to add this to my shtick?
You know, it took me a long time to realize that the violin for me is my gimmick.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always was like, I ain't no gimmick. I ain't gonna be no gimmick. But to me, in my
Right.
heart, and it's like the violin has been the thing that I've used to get and hold people's attention,
Right.
while I've been working on like my production and my writing, because I always felt like, you know, the violin by itself, it never quite fulfilled me all the way. And I
Okay.
always wondered why. I wondered why I would get to certain like peaks. And when I got there, I was just like, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. So in searching for that it thing for me, I was always producing. Like, I was always making tracks all the way back to high school, making Fruity Loop tracks.
Right.
And
Fruity
even then, I would tell my brother and my friends that I was producing with, I would say, you know, my tracks, this is not how they're gonna sound. You know, this is I want my tracks to be live, and I'm gonna bring back real music and real instruments and all that. And so I didn't take my production serious right away, because I always felt like this isn't the fullness of my, you know, my capabilities. But you know, I'll still continue to entertain with the violin, but
right.
it just never, it never, I don't know. It just never was like, man, this is it, I've arrived. You know, I'll feel like I've arrived when I can take my violin and multiply it by, you know, composing and writing for orchestras and things like that. You know, growing up in the church, there was always questions that would arise for me. And it was like, you know, there was a parable of God giving people talents. And, you know,
Yes.
one man goes and he multiplies his, another multiplies his, another one buries his. And I was always like, yo, well, how do you multiply talent? And I took
Right.
it very, very literally. And even right now, I'm realizing that I know two ways now. And in this
Okay.
conversation, I'm realizing the second one. The first one is teach. Like, you take your
Yes.
talent and you teach it, therefore it
Yes.
multiplies. And then it, you know, it becomes exponential, it grows. But the other one for me is to, I mean, I guess it all revolves around teaching, but you have to like give people something to play. So I write like I play.
Right.
So they're essentially playing, which is again, like multiplying my talent. So
Yeah.
I write for orchestra the same way I play one line is the
Right.
way that the parts are, and the composition and the counterpoint are, trickled throughout the whole entire piece.
Yeah. So have you ever written a symphony?
I haven't necessarily written a symphony, but it depends on how you define symphony.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
so
But
I
like,
don't.
yeah, go ahead.
I would say I will.
Okay.
I'll say that.
All right.
I think that I've been a bit reserved with writing works like that because I want access to like the full orchestral sound, right?
Right.
Because when I write, I don't write like a Beethoven or a Bach or somebody that would sit down and write it ahead of time. Like I kind of write it as I feel it, as I think it. I'll write one line and then I'll find the counterpoint for the harmonies or the melodies to go along with that, and then write the next part. So it's never like I actually transcribe last. So
Okay.
that's the last thing that I do. So I'm not like just sitting here writing these, it's not like that for me. Like it's literally like just put me in the studio and things will happen.
That's fascinating. So what has been pouring out of you lately? I guess this is my cue to just basically kind of tee up. You have a new project that's going to be coming out next year called Guidebook for a Gentleman. But unlike, what seems to be happening in the, music business at large, you actually wrote a song cycle. Talk to us a little bit about the song cycle and that creative process.
Okay. Well, the initial thing you asked is like, what am I creating right now, right?
Right.
And I found myself in a space where I want to make music that helps people, allows them to have a good time.
Yes.
Right? So I've been making like more dance tracks at different tempos, but the process to get there, I had to go through creating the album that I just finished recently.
Gotcha.
I started with, so some of the songs on my album are over 10 years old.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this process has been ongoing for a long time. So when I actually sat down and decided, I want to put an album together,
Right.
I already had maybe 40 or 50 songs to choose from. And then I whittled those down because remember, I had created them, but I didn't necessarily create them in the way that I heard them.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So nobody has ever heard like the majority of the things that I had tucked away. Like,
Gotcha.
It wasn't like I was doing it and then showing people. It's like, no, it was kind of like a labor of love. And it was my, my quiet,
Yes.
thing that I was doing because I always had this worry and this insecurity about coming into the marketplace as a singer and people saying you should just stick to the violin, So I literally have, I've taken voice lessons here and there, and I've just learned to take the craft of singing much more seriously.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The other part of this process is that I have an audio engineering degree. So I've been producing my whole life.
Right.
And I've been playing violin and multiple instruments my whole life and singing. And then you throw engineering in there. So in the studio, I'm more than a one-man band. I'm a one-man band and the person recording the band.
Right.
Setting up the mics and
right.
Bringing in musicians and producing and A&Ring my own project.
Right.
And in that process, I had some people that I was leaning on. And I realized that I was leaning on them because I was insecure about my abilities in certain areas.
Sure.
Right? So certain things I felt like, man, I know somebody that could do this better than me.
Right.
And then So I was leaning on them. And then when I realized that like I couldn't lean on them no more, I
Right.
had to walk on my own
Right.
and develop the strength in areas that I was like before, like, oh, I can't do this. But then I realized like, oh, it could have only been done this way. Like
Isn't that
the
funny?
additional, yeah, like it had to be this way, which is why I said, like, I don't really see adversity. I see an opportunity for me to strengthen in an area that I was weak in.
Right.
Right. So sometimes when you encounter not having what you believe you should have, it's
Right.
actually an opportunity for you to strengthen what you do have. What you think you perceive you don't have, you
Right.
end up having it. You just need to strengthen it. And so I
Oh, I
strengthened
can
my
relate.
production skills all the way across the board throughout this process. So I
Okay,
was doing
Pin,
what I
one
could.
second, because they need to know how many tracks you ultimately record.
Let's
Because
see,
we were having a conversation and my mouth was on the floor. You were like, oh yeah, I just do. And that just blew my mind. So when you're
Yeah.
producing, you're writing all these string parts and the rhythm section, everything, how many tracks do you ultimately stack in order to get the sound that you want?
So I start with 20 string tracks already.
Automatically,
6
right?
violin, 6 second violin, 6 viola, 2 cellos, sometimes 4. But off the bat, that's 20 right
Right.
there.
Right.
And then that's not including vocals and background vocals. And like I like dense harmonies. That's not including percussion, because I use a lot of live like percussion. That's not including guitars or pianos, horns. So majority of my tracks probably land, if I had to estimate, they probably land around 75 to 100 tracks per song.
That's wild.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
it's like
so
when people hear it, it's definitely one of those. I'll tell you a story. I was in the studio in my building where I work mainly, and I was in there just doing my regular thing, singing, doing parts, doing this, you know, saying just whatever. And
right.
I came out the room, and it was some other tenants in the building, some black people, you know, what I'm saying, and they was like, "Bro, like y'all are going crazy in there."
Y'all.
I was like, y'all. They said, man, y'all, hey, they was like, what's the name of y'all group, man? Like, y'all going, like, the sounds that we're hearing, crazy, bro. I was like, yeah, it's just me. They're like, no way. They're like, no way, no way. They're like, I heard a girl voice, I heard instruments, I heard this. I'm like, I heard the drums going off. I said, yeah, like it was just me.
Yeah.
And they were so blown away by that,
right.
that I didn't think anything of it. I'm just like, yo, I'm just sitting here creating. But
right.
people hearing it on the outside and their
right.
perceptions, what is that experiment like being in the cave? You know, so like you don't know like certain things or whatever, but
Yeah.
From them just hearing it on the other side of the door,
right.
It was definitely a different experience for them. But I really don't be thinking of it, but yeah, you know.
That is so
normal for
dope.
me.
That is so cool. Not everybody can say that. I mean, you know, and it's a blessing, and it's just an extension of your gift. And I just think it's wonderful how all of these different areas of your toolkit get to come together to create something amazing like this new song that you did, Beyond. So,
Yeah.
you know, what was the lightning bolt that came down and inspired that song?
It wasn't even a lightning bolt. It was some plant medicine in the jungle.
What? Oh, a plant medicine. Do tell.
So I'm an adventurous, man. I'm
sure.
And when I trust right out the gate. Like I give 100% up front, and then if I have to retract it, you know what I'm saying, then that's what I do. But for the majority of things, when I trust people, I really trust them. And so I tried ayahuasca in Tulum in the jungle. It's a psychedelic.
Oh, wow.
It's the experience for me was an arrival. And when I got home after, because I was gone for months. Like I'm like, I can't do New York right now. I want to be in nature, you know, like it kind of does that to you. But when I finally got home and I finally sat down, Beyond was the first thing that I created. And I was just like going through sounds, and I heard that flute sound, and it was just like, oh, this sounds like ayahuasca right here. And what ensued from that was it was an arrival as well, in that I arrived at the understanding that the light that I was always seeking out, searching for, was within. You know what I'm saying? So once I realized that, it's kind of like life feels different.
Right.
It just feels much different when you know that, like, the source of your strength and your power and the spirit and God is within. Like, I don't got to go looking for it. Like, I could be anywhere and God is always there with me. It's kind of a beautiful feeling and sentiment.
That is I couldn't have arrived at that description better. It was perfectly stated. And the crazy thing about it is for some people, there is definitely some stigma behind, psychedelics, whether they're natural or synthetic. But I since this is a conversation, I get to tell my story too. Back in the day when I was making music in the East Village with my friends, I had decided that I was going to kind of put my pen down for a minute, and it coincided with my friends telling me that I should try these mushrooms, and I was just like, oh, okay, what do I have to lose? And so they coached me through it, and they they were like, okay, well, don't freak out because the walls may start to move. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool, so no problem. So I ate the mushrooms and nothing happened. And we went to this Asian restaurant. We're all sitting there in this long table, and my best friend is sitting next to me. And out of my peripheral vision, the wall starts to undulate. And at church, my friend Eric said, Eric, it's happening.
Oh my God.
I said the wall, it's like the glass I could see it moving. And I had to say, if they hadn't told me that it would happen, I probably would have freaked out. Instead, I was just really curious.
Yeah.
And so, I can't even remember if I've ever done mushrooms again, but it was one of those things where I was no longer afraid, So you said you were trusting. I was trusting in my little friend circle and stuff like that.
Yeah, I trusted my friend,
Yeah.
She was like, yeah.
No, it's important. It's important to be introduced to those kinds of things in a circle, in an environment that is trusting. I do have a friend. She's a musician, and she and her husband have a practice where they introduce people to microdosing of psychedelics for, ostensibly for breakthroughs and spiritual transformations. And that's clearly what you experienced, which is a really beautiful thing on top of that foundation that you had growing up in church and stuff like that. You have a framework within which to interpret, the experience that you had. So that's really cool to me. So were there 75 tracks on that production as well? Because that's a meandering piece of production,
no,
my friend.
that one might be like 150. Like,
wow.
I went all out on that one. That one has horns. That's something I don't have. Like, in all of my music, it has horns, got trombones and trumpets, and it's got African voices, and like indigenous voices. Like, I had people in Africa working with me on this project, and it came out. It's glorious. Oh, I love it so much.
As well you should. And I love the fact that you use that word glorious, because it is celebratory, and it's big, and it's layered, and it's like, I asked you before if you ever wrote a symphony, because the song has movements.
Right, that's why I'm saying, like, how you define that? Because if you want to be, I don't, just depends on how you define it. I can tell you yay or nay, but based on that definition. But this was really, it's large. It's larger than life. But it's very intentional though, you know, like I was really got to a point where I was like, you know, it would be really dope to start to use music as a vehicle to connect, you know, Africa back to African American heritage, and, you know, just let's start this conversation, because music is the one thing that, you know, it's undeniable, you know, which is why you see Afrobeat and all these different, I'm a piano, you see these things starting to catch hold in the United States. And I mean, you know, like hip hop and R&B and all that has always been prevalent in Africa. So it's like music is reaching over here, our music reaching over there. So it's kind of like I took elements from there, elements from here, but then I do a lot of stuff with a nylon string guitar. So it just, come on, man. But I don't really, there's no boundaries when I create.
Right. Right.
You know, it's kind of like it's very boundless, and I think that might be the title to my second album. Is boundless. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I can't wait. I can't wait. So will you come back and share with us when you're ready next year?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, once, you know, I mean, you know, we have a plan to
Yes,
really,
absolutely.
I feel like we're fishing with dynamite. That's
well, you know, that's exactly that. I love that analogy. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. Fishing with diamonds, but that is really, really apropos, because
I mean, I feel like I planted these seeds a long time ago, and it's time to harvest and it's time to feast. You know,
right?
It's like it's time for everybody to eat, and I'm just looking forward to creating community around.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, well, you know, it's when I'm sitting there with your magical hard drive and everything you play is a incredible. I don't want to say a hit. It's just incredible.
I just say I perfected the sauce. Like as far as like
what
I make, you know what I'm saying? It's like whatever it is that I'm making, you know what I'm saying? It's
you mamma mia. You got the spicy meatball. The sauce is there. It's so exciting.
Sauce, man. Sauce.
I'm excited for you. Thank you for coming to share with us about Beyond, a little bit about your history, your experience in the classical world, and how, you know, one day they'll be all, oh, Lee, you must come play with us. And you know, it's all coming. It's all coming because you are present and you are sharing your gift in all the different ways that you can. So it's really beautiful that you're there with these folks who are trying to infuse new messaging into the public discourse.
Yeah, it's like they're all about social impact, and I feel like the next time they invite me here, it'll be to speak.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Well, that's all we got for today. Thank you for joining us on Impact, Music, Media, and Culture. You got some culture, y'all.